All right, guys, welcome to the Fight to Finish podcast. My name is Arwin and I'm here with my lovely co-host, my wife,
Sissi.
And on the podcast today, we have Cody Nault. He has a very interesting story. We actually connected through social media, and we're very happy to have him on the show today. Cody, thank you for joining us on the Fight to Finish podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Cody, like I mentioned just a second ago, we connected through social media, but I actually found your profile on TikTok of Unlikely Places. I was just kind of browsing the For You page, and I stumbled upon a video of yours where you were explaining that you had left your current job and drove all the way to the Silicon Valley in hopes of finding what's out here. And by trade, I believe you're a coder. Is that correct? Programmer,
yep.
Coder?
I've been coding for a long time.
And so you just upped and left. I mean, take us through that journey of, number one, what made you decide to catalog it? And number two, what kind of take us through the journey of, sitting at your desk where you were at, and then moving out and taking a chance out here in the Silicon Valley.
Yeah, so the very first video that I posted in this journey was just me actually, like you said, sitting at my desk and just saying, I'm about to go look for something interesting to do. Start the next chapter of my life. But there was actually a lot of stuff that led up to that point. A lot of just kind of things. I've been working at the same job for about the last 6 years. And during that time, I finished my degree, and I was just at a point where it was really time to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Programmers, especially, there's kind of this need to keep moving.
Yeah.
We're taught growing up that stability is key. If you can work a job long term, that's like the most important thing. But with people working in technology, a lot of times we kind of see this situation where if somebody sits in the same job for more than 5 or 6 years, they start getting stale. They stop learning.
Yeah.
They get really narrow-minded. And I really didn't want to become that person. So I had always kind of planned that I wouldn't be at that job for probably more than 6 years. And there was just a lot of stuff going on, like around the Rogue Valley, which is where I came from. I had a lot of trouble finding people who were very passionate about the things they were working on. Most of that area is pretty much focused on the cannabis industry nowadays. And meanwhile, a guy like me, programmer, who's just obsessed with like data science and that sort of stuff, it was really hard for me to
connect,
find my people.
Yeah.
I was starting clubs, data science clubs, things like that. Hosting lectures and events and stuff. And it was really hard to just find people that I could just talk to and be passionate about what I'm working on with.
Yeah.
And so, I talked to a lot of people there. A lot of people were upset that I was leaving because they were saying like, hey, we, build a company here, do something here. And it's like, with what? I don't know who to hire.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's like, even if I started my own company, like what people am I going to hire? Mm-hmm. And every time I came to Silicon Valley, it was like, I just met people so easy. Like I spoke the same language with everyone here. And, I just realized like, you know what? If I'm going to build something, if I'm going to start something new, work from the, I need to do it in a place where there's human capital, my people who are passionate about things. And so I came to the realization, it was probably like 6 months ago, that it's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to do this. I need to go to Silicon Valley, and I kind of went back and forth, but finally, like a few months, I actually gave my previous job quite a bit of heads up. I said, in 2020, I'm going to go on to another job. So let's start preparing.
Them.
Yeah. Like let's start preparing for my departure, so, cause the system I had developed, we had to, basically onboard a development team to replace me.
Oh, wow.
Because I was wearing so many hats at my previous job that, we couldn't really find one person to come in and do all of my jobs. So it took a little bit, but we got everything situated, and I had just set a date. I said, okay, I think it was like January 23rd. I'm like, all right, this is going to be my last day here. And I was so excited to just get down here. I had my car packed that night.
Oh, wow.
And so my first video was me sitting at my desk saying, I'm about to quit my job. I'm about to leave. I'm going to Silicon Valley. And then the next morning, like less than 12 hours later, my second video I posted is, I'm packed. I am about to go to Silicon Valley. And I posted that video and got in my car. And like my phone kept making noises all the way because of all the like my notifications for likes were turned on, and I had to silence the notifications so it wouldn't distract me while I was driving. And by the time I got to Silicon Valley, I had looked at my phone and I had like my first 1,000 followers. And I'm just like, whoa, what just happened? And it was actually kind of funny because, you know, the day before I posted that, I was talking to a friend of mine, and you know, a lot of the people up there kept saying like, hey, we want you to keep us updated, you know, because, you know, what you're doing sounds crazy. We want to know how it goes. And I'm like, well, how about I just like video blog it and I just kind of share it with you guys. And I'm like, maybe let's do something crazy. Let's just make it public too. See if there's other people who are interested in this as well. And it's like, haha, wouldn't that be funny if I actually got like a following in the process? And it was more kind of humorous, like, well, I'll try it. We'll see if anybody's actually interested in this. And sure enough, I'm over 10,000 followers now.
Yeah, congrats. You recently hit that milestone. I saw.
Yeah. And it's still growing. It's going even faster now. But yeah, it's definitely been a trip. And you know, those first couple of videos were kind of targeted more for like my friends and family.
Yeah.
But then so many people just jumped on board immediately that it's like, okay, apparently I'm going to have to be, you know, tuning these videos and for a general audience, people who don't know me. So I kind of went into this not really with a social media plan. And I've been kind of adapting as we go.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What did that feel like when you made that decision to leave? Were you nervous at all, or was it just like all excitement?
That's a good question. So I know that I am I'm pretty confident in my ability to get a job. My whole life I've basically been, you know, building businesses and you know, I've never really had a time in my life when I wasn't working, and I know that you know, I'm very employable. So I wasn't really too worried about like, you know, oh my gosh, am I going to fail? Because worst case, I just have to settle for less. Because really that's, you know, I'm not, you know, if I run out of money and you know, and my current plans kind of fail or whatever, I just settle for one of the other, you know, a job that's not quite as interesting as I had hoped or something. But ultimately, I'm pretty confident in my ability to survive. I've been through a lot worse than this.
I think that's very important to say, like, you know, to compare. Like, I'm glad that you said that because, you know, a lot of people get nervous to take a jump, whether it's a business idea or going after their dream job, right? They get nervous of failing. And I think having an inkling of confidence in your ability, right? And some people like yourself that are born with that have that confidence built into them. But I don't have to worry about that as much. But then there's tons of us, like myself included. I'm like, oh, okay, hold on. How about if I fail and I just go down a rabbit hole? But I think having inkling of like confidence in your ability to like, I've been through worse. I can survive this, right? I think that's very important to let people know that, hey, you know, you will come out on top as long as you try and you give it your all in whatever you're doing. I think that's huge.
Yeah, and you know, I briefly mentioned this in some of the videos, but these videos didn't really get a whole lot of views, so I'm not really sure how many people even really know some of my backstory. But this isn't the first time I'm homeless either. You know, when I was 16, I finished high school from my car, and that time it wasn't by choice. And so when I was 19, I had moved to Oregon, and I didn't have any connections, and I was actually kind of dealing with depression at the time and anxiety and stuff. And And I really couldn't hold a full-time job back then. And because it was really hard for me to do the 9-to-5 thing. So I actually just made a bunch of business cards and started knocking on doors. And it was, it was tough, anxiety wise, to try to put myself out there.
Yeah.
But, just knocking on doors and handing out business cards and saying, I just moved to the area. I know how to fix computers. Here's my card. I would come home at the end of the day with a couple $100 oftentimes, because people would say, oh, actually, my computer's broken right now. Can you fix it? And that ended up like it snowballed to the point where I had so many clients that I had to open up a brick and mortar shop. And within a year, I had 3 employees. And yeah, so I mean, I've done this before. I've moved to an area, and I did it from absolute poverty. But there was no proof. All you have is my story. And so when I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do this again, but I am going to do it from, middle class going up instead of poverty going up.
Yeah.
I want to do this again, but this time I'm going to document it. This time I'm actually going to journal it. I'm going to show my process, because, I tell these stories and, it surprises people.
Yeah.
That it's like, oh, wow, you came from living in your car to building your own business. And, it's like I got to the point where I had my own store. I was CEO of my little corporation at age 20. And I was making my own schedule. And, it's like, if I needed a day off, I would just give myself a day off. Like,
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so I realized that even when things were really bad and like I had less money than I had now, and I was living in my car, not by choice, like I could still build a life for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, now when things are stable, let's put myself back into that position where I have to claw my way out of a hole, but actually do it with a little more experience, a little more preparation. And, let's see how far I can go if I recreate that situation where I have to challenge myself.
I think that's really cool that you had, those. Number one, thank you for sharing that. I think that was pretty awesome. I didn't catch those set of videos. I think it's really awesome that now you're getting another chance, and you're reattacking, putting yourself in an uncomfortable position and challenge yourself to build something up again, but not maybe from a more poverty-stricken point, but now of like you have more experience, like you said, you have a lot more knowledge from your previous things, but now you're like, okay, I can take a lot of those takeaways from the previous time I tried this, now do it on a grander scale, but with a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more stability to start off with, right?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting, and I don't think a lot of people, I think there's a lot of people who went through what I did, getting out of bad situations and making a better life for themselves.
Yeah.
But then once they create that stability, they want to hang on to it. But what I've discussed, I hit a point in my life where I'm just like, you know what, this stability is preventing growth. I need to break some of that stability. I need to create a little bit of chaos in my life and just go for it. And
I laugh because that's something she does all the time. Like she gets too comfortable with something, and then she was like, I gotta, right?
Yeah, I say I can't be too happy in life, because then I'm like, something has to go wrong. Like I need something to be able to grow. Otherwise, I just feel stuck, And I feel like things are going too well.
Complacency, which isn't, is the enemy of growth.
Oh, I love it. So take us. So you decide to move. You hop in your car and you plan. You've told your previous employer, hey, I'm gonna leave. Let's prep for this. Let's develop this team, and then I'm gonna leave. So you get here, and what's the first thing you do? I noticed that you started doing these meetups and these little what I call underground, but like these meetups of entrepreneurs sharing ideas. Is like how did you link up with those, or how did you find out about those things?
Yeah, so actually a majority of those is just me going to meetup.com and taking off all of the search filters and sorting by date.
Oh, wow.
And literally just going through the hundreds of entries of just all of the weird stuff that's going on. And I just go through everything. And then anything that's interesting, I throw it on I have a Google Calendar dedicated to Silicon Valley events. that I think could be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I just throw them all in that calendar. And then as I was going throughout each day, I would look at the calendar and I would say, okay, which of the interesting events that I ran onto are either nearby or, the potential for something interesting.
Yeah.
And so I would pack my days with like 3 meetups a day in the beginning. Because my belief is that when if you go to an area where you have no connections, like the first thing you got to do is start connecting with people. Because, I grew up in this world, I was a Boy Scout when I was a kid. And, we'd go out wilderness survival, and the first thing that's going to kill you in the wilderness is the elements, right? So you got to figure out shelter, figure out water, food, that sort of stuff. But when I was looking at trying to survive in a city, what are the things that can go wrong? It's like, it's not necessarily the wilderness that's going to kill you. It's other people. So, it's like safety was one big concern, but when there's other people around, like you building this network of people who actually like support you and believe in the things you're doing, and like, having friends is one of the most important things you can do for your personal safety and success. And so it's like, okay, I have to go meet people. That's like priority number one. And luckily, a lot of meetups have free food. So, if you go to these meetups, a lot of them, you can get a free meal each day. And so if you just kind of snack all morning, you can just eat like a protein bar and some nuts throughout the day, and then you get free pizza at your meetup each night or something. So you can survive on practically nothing when these meetups are going. The challenge has been now with the coronavirus that all meetups are canceled. So I've had to kind of shift gears. But yeah, initially it's like meet people, human contact, like having actual human connections is like one of the biggest safety nets. And if you're going to an area and you don't know anybody, if something goes wrong, that's when you get screwed if you don't have somebody, people looking out for you. So it's like, I need to go start making friends, like from day 0.
Like, well, number one, which meetups did you attend? Because I saw a couple of them, or at least the ones that I got tuned in. Number one, I saw that one where it turned out to be a multi-level marketing one. I kind of laughed and chuckled at that one just because I shared the same experience. I kind of was led to going into it going, oh, this is a cool event. And then you sit down, you're like, oh, this is totally not what you made it out to be. So of those, I was like, which were some of the ones that were like really cool that you attended? Because I love that you shared some of the ideas. You didn't share them exactly, but you shared their core idea of what you learned. So I admire that you gave it a little bit of secrecy, because that's really cool about like what people are they're sharing, but at the same time they're working on their own projects, right?
Yeah. So when I was with the meetups, especially, it was kind of what I found is it is kind of a numbers game. There is going to be a certain portion of them that are dead ends. You're going to go to it. You're not going to meet anybody. It's going to be not very great quality. But that's why I was doing like 3 a day, because what I found is about 1 in 10 meetups I would go to, I would actually meet somebody really interesting or really connected, or, or make friends with some, it's like, so just by doing 3 a day, it was only every few days I was like meeting. It's like, awesome. This was really good. And so by just packing your schedule, you can actually meet quite a bit of people, and as long as you're friendly and it's like, and I felt like the beginning is the time that you need to get out there the most, because that's when you're kind of high on all the excitement, and people are really drawn into these stories. Like, wow, you just moved here 2 days ago and you're living in your car. Like, you don't have a plan. You're crazy. That's awesome. I want to hang out. Like, so I figured, okay, I have this brief window when I have a story that's going to draw people in. Like, I have to get that out there and talk to as many people as I can to try to find the people who are excited by this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, a lot of the events were sort of dead ends, like the multi-level marketing, that sort of stuff. I'm like, yeah, I'm not interested in that angle. So, and like some of them, things that are like if there's a meetup that says like, learn about, your financial independence or, whatever, like those ones are probably selling you something and they're not that interesting. The ones that are like, mixers, networking, specifically networking events, those oftentimes are really fun. Sometimes like I've gotten some really good leads from going to an event that is literally just, hey, we're singing at a karaoke bar. Wow. You would think that like, wait a second, like that's not like a business mixer, but a lot of times the, people who aren't looking to network are the ones who are already successful and they just want to go have some fun. Go out to the karaoke bar and you can actually meet a lot of, I met lots of program managers and project managers just like hanging out in karaoke bars at, things like that.
And through these meetups, have you met like anyone like super interesting that like really stood out to you?
Well, I mean, I'm doing a startup now with a, business partner that I met at one of these meetups.
Fantastic. That's awesome.
So, I mean, that tells you it's pretty great. I mean, a lot of times the young entrepreneurs groups, I mean, they have a higher frequency of having interesting people.
Yeah,
I've found. Like I met some really awesome people at some of those, and just really building my network. And in some of the places that I've couch surfed were at places like that. Also, one way to kind of build up some of these relationships is to jump into things where you're working with people. So like when I was interviewing, I ended up getting interviews for Facebook. I don't know if you saw those
I did.
Videos. But so I went to some interview prep groups and I organized some study groups, with people that I met at those interview prep groups, like just like 4 of us or whatever, it's like, and those sorts of events, you end up getting pretty close to people because you're working together towards a common goal.
Right.
And so that's where you can kind of build some tighter connections with people. And so those are good. But I mean, it's really just kind of all over the place. You find things in areas that you don't necessarily expect.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier, and you don't have to, again, divulge too much. You are at a startup now. You have a startup now with a business partner. You doing the whole garage thing like the Silicon Valley startups have done. I mean, that's kind of the dream, right? That's what everybody wants to do. I mean, to me, that's kind of like what's known about this area.
Yeah, it's definitely this kind of mythology that's built around a lot of these companies, whether it's true or not. All the, Apple and HP and Google, they all love to talk about their start in a garage. I mean, even though it was, if you actually interview people in the beginning, some of that is a little
myth
iffy as to how, it's about which companies actually started in a garage. But like, because it's such like this, it's so iconic. It's like, okay, that is on my bucket list. I am going to work on a startup in a garage at some point in my life. Like, this is great. And so, I had been talking to this one guy that I had met and about an idea, and we kind of met a couple times. And one day he's like, yeah, I'm in this cottage in Palo Alto. You want to come over and work on it in a garage? And it's like, heck yes. And so like I'm sitting there and, we're sitting here with whiteboarding ideas and in a garage in Palo Alto. And it's just like, okay, this is great. We're actually doing it in the garage. This is
what's funny.
This is so perfect.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny. I moved here maybe 3-4 years ago, and she grew up. Even though she wasn't born here, she grew up here a lot of her life. And so it turns out she was like, hey, I actually grew up near Steve Jobs' childhood home where they supposedly or did start Apple. And I was like, no way. And so we drove to it, and it was just like, whoa, did they start it here? I mean, but the whole aura around just the garage startup was just kind of cool. If you go literally down the street, the main campus is there and it's huge. It's, it's just really cool to see where the humble beginnings, like you're finding out, where it's a whiteboard and you're sketching out ideas. It's just two people, and it can grow into something much grander, right? And I think that's really cool about this whole, about a lot of the companies that are in this area now, you know? So I think now, like, so now you're doing the garage startup thing. And I'm glad that you've gotten to this point, but you know, a couple of the videos you've addressed, like homelessness, you know, and I can see that you're in your car now, and you talk so candidly about living out of your car and couch surfing. How has that experience been? Because I know in this area, I don't know if you've noticed it, you'll notice a lot of these camper vans, the van life. A lot of people are sharing a similar story, or you know, pursuing a different route, but they are living out of a vehicle for the most part. How has that experience been, living, you know, in this area?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting because, like, it's so common here. It doesn't, like, it's really weird to, you know, be in a parking lot and look around and, you know, it's like, oh yeah, there's like 5 other people sleeping in this parking lot.
Yeah.
You know? So it's definitely interesting. I mean, my story is obviously not the same as a lot of people's.
Sure,
a lot of people aren't doing this to necessarily challenge themselves. They're doing it because, you know, they are challenged. And you know, by their life situation or whatever whatever they've encountered. I mean, housing prices here are astronomical.
Tell me about
it. You know, it's like one of the places somebody had me over in Mountain View, and they had the tiniest 1-bedroom apartment. And they're just like, this is what $2,300 a month gets you.
Yeah.
And it's like the tiniest apartment. And it's just like, dang.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think the thing for me is, because I came into this with preparation, you know, if I was thrown into this, it would have been a lot harder to kind of maintain this sort of lifestyle and not let it get the best of me. Because, you know, I actually did kind of a couple trial runs. Like I mentioned, I came down to Silicon Valley a couple times, just kind of checking things out. And I would do like a weekend or something. And I would, you know, and I saw real quick, like, okay, if you aren't careful, you're going to end up living in a pile of trash in your car.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you see people with trash piled all the way up, you know, to the ceiling in their car. Yeah. And you think, oh my gosh, that person's been doing that for years. No, they might have been doing it for like a couple of weeks, because it is very easy to get things just to get out of hand real quick. Yeah. And so that's why I really focused on developing this like minimalist lifestyle, figure out what I absolutely need, because, you know, I really didn't, while I'm living in my car, I'm trying to avoid the vagrancy look. You know, I'm trying to avoid, you know, looking dirty and I'm, you know,
unkempt.
You know, it's like I try to keep my beard trimmed and, you know, that sort of stuff. Sure. And so I can look employable and because it's actually, you know, it's sad, but it's actually a lot harder to get help if you don't look normal. I mean, like if you don't already look healthy and taken care of, you know, if you look like you're living on the street, it's sad, but it's actually, you know, it's harder to make friends and make connections with people and stuff like that, which is the best safety net you can have.
Yeah.
So when I went into this, it's like, okay, I am not going to let myself go down that road. You know, when I was in high school, I've experienced that before. I remember being, you know, my hair looking all greasy and, you know, people commenting on how greasy I looked and stuff because I wasn't showering as often. And, you know, and so like I had to like start showering at a friend's house so it's like, okay, you know, I got to stay on top of my personal appearance and hygiene very well. So like I never go more than 48 hours without a shower. I wash all of my bedding at least once a week. I wash like, because it's just real easy to get out of hand. And, you know, there's just so many things that I can talk about the homeless situation here, because it doesn't really follow the rules of what people imagine homelessness is. You know, people have stereotypes of what it means to be homeless. One of the first weeks I was here and I was like going to all these meetups and stuff, people are like, this dude's not homeless. Like homeless, it's like, you don't know what homelessness is. It's just like, okay. Like, it's like, I've been through homelessness and it was not like this. That was a very popular comment I got.
Oh, wow.
And it's just like, all right, you know what? Like, homelessness is not one thing. Homelessness is not having a home. And it exists on a very wide spectrum. In certain areas, it may look more like one thing. That, as you drive around town, you say like, oh yeah, that guy looks homeless, and then you just think that that's what homelessness is. But that is one specific type of homelessness. That is like maybe some combination of, either mental illness, poor economic conditions, addiction. They roll all of these things into homelessness and say only this is homelessness. But in reality, especially here, you can't call one thing homelessness because it is this wide spectrum. There's people that, there's the stereotypical vagrancy homeless, but then there is, the RVs, like you mentioned, there's step vans, there's, people that just live in their cars, like, or, just sleep in their car and then drive Uber during the day, or, there's, people who couch surf. There's all of these different things, and none of these people have homes, right? And so are they not homeless because they didn't fit some stereotype of what somebody decided homelessness is?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we got to be careful to not label things, especially if we want to make progress in solving some of these problems. If we say like, oh yeah, like, the trick to solving homelessness is X, Y, and Z, like, you're gonna not really be helping the situation if you're not really taking the time to understand what is causing these sorts of things, what's putting people in these situations.
Yeah.
And, people need to take the time to actually understand these people, what they're going through, what's putting them in these situations, and realize that the few people they've met don't describe the entire population, because there's all sorts of people from every walk of life out here.
Yeah. I think, I think that's a very good point. Like, there's different levels to homelessness, right? Like, it is so apparent here. And it's hard to describe for people that don't currently live here or have visited here a lot, right? There are different levels, that might be down on their luck, or somebody choosing to living in their vehicle, live that way for that purpose, or, because of housing. I think, I think you make a very good point that, we need to, in order for us to solve this problem, or the homelessness issue, is we need to understand what levels there are and understand from, what get perspective, right, of it as a whole before we can begin to even tackle it. Well,
I'm interested. So, like, living in your car, have you met other homeless people and just kind of like found out like how they've gone into that situation?
Well, I mean, I've always been kind of just make friends with homeless people just because I'm not afraid of them, and you treat them like human beings. It's actually pretty easy to make friends with these guys.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've never, my whole life, like I said, I've always, it's like anytime somebody, it's like I've given people rides and help, set people up with, it's like if somebody's like, somebody comes up to me in a parking lot and they're just like, hey man, like, I'm homeless and somebody just stole all my stuff. It's like, all right, let's go into Walmart. We'll get you a tarp. We'll get you a new sleeping bag. It's like, I've done that like my whole life because I know, these are real people and they have needs and so like, and the same's here. Like I hang out and talk to some of these people, but at the same time, I haven't really been showing those interactions.
Sure.
Because I mean, this isn't, like, these are real people. This isn't a wildlife safari.
Yeah. That's fair. Absolutely.
And I feel like trying to just show like, oh yeah, like look at this homeless person, is kind of exploitative. That's not really what I'm going for
here. I respect that. That's awesome. I mean, a
lot of people keep asking me, show us what the homelessness is like. Show us what they're actually going through. It's like, I don't know how to show that without, while allowing these people to keep their dignity.
Right.
Because like they're not just something to be observed. They're people that you need to get to know.
Yeah.
And like, let's treat them like that. Absolutely. But the issues that lead people into these situations definitely deserve attention, and I'd like to figure out a way to give these people a voice. I haven't figured out the most appropriate way of going about doing something like that yet.
Yeah, but I mean, even just talking about it like on a you who's is living through that now to some degree, just talking about it and giving people an audience that may be listening to our podcast, like that, it's a platform. You don't. I think that's a great approach too. I'm glad that you've talked about it and you talk about it so candidly with us. So hopefully someone listening or a group of people listening can be more aware of it and present of it, and be more respectful of these people, that are some of them might be down on their luck, So I appreciate you sharing that perspective with us. So I mean, how important is it it seems like there's a driving force. You seem to be very disciplined, even in, like you said, you give yourself a standard. You try to give yourself, don't go longer than 48 hours without showering, washing your bedding. It seems like you have some degree of discipline. How important is maintaining discipline and or like giving yourself a standard? How important is that
in your process? In
your process, even through, let's just say, the meetups and with your startup, how important is discipline to you? It sounds like it's pretty.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. So my philosophy in terms of discipline is definitely less about willpower and more about setting yourself up to be accountable. I found that, things like reporting your progress on social media, for instance, that gives you a certain level of accountability. When people are watching you, you kind of have to perform. Like it would be very easy to slip down some, like kind of slip backwards a little bit and be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to take a couple days off and just be lazy, or,
Yeah.
Part of deciding to live in my car was to create extra push factor. Cause like, if I came down here with a plan to it's like, if I made sure that like I had, some income and maybe I had a cheap place to live or something like that, would I try as hard? If I don't, it's like I'm watching my bank account disappear.
Yeah.
That all of these things, it's like I'm creating monetary incentives. I'm creating a level of discomfort. Like I don't have a comfortable place to go home and just chill. So what do? I work for 14 hours a day. Like, because what else do you do?
Yeah.
I don't like. I go and, it's like I'll go park my car when I'm ready to sleep, and I just kind of go respond to social media stuff until I fall asleep. But during the day, what am I doing?
You're working.
I'm working.
Yeah.
If I had a house with a couch and a TV, do you think I would probably work as hard? I'd probably want to get home to some of that.
Yeah.
So by eliminating some of those comforts of life creates this environment where what do you do now? Might as well work. And I realized this, because I started downsizing last year, and, I actually kept downsizing. And I realized that like when I was living in situations where it was less comfortable, wow, I could focus at work better because I was thinking less about getting home.
Makes sense. That's cool.
And so it's just like, oh man, it's like the more stuff and the more comfort we create, the less we want to push ourselves because there's always that safety. There's that spot where we can just chill and turn off. Like I don't have a place I can really just turn off anymore.
Mm.
And in a city, there's nowhere. Like, sometimes, like, if I have to, I'll go, lay down on the grass in a park or something and just take a nap or something. But other than that, like, there's not really a lot of options for me to go feel comfortable. And really everything I'm doing, these situations, the vlogging, the living in the car, all of it is really just about pushing yourself. And, it's something that I learned a lot about, when I was, losing weight last year and, getting more working on my health, as I realized that like losing weight for, getting fit really is less of a physical process and more of a mental process.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
And it's all about creating all this world for yourself, trying to create a lifestyle of progress. Learning's the same way. It's like the people who are the most successful in fitness are the ones that are just like, yeah, fitness is my lifestyle. It's not the ones that are like, I am going to work out for 3 months and I'm going to lose these number of pounds and then I'm done. Like, if you are doing it, if you have like a set timeline and it's like, I'm only going to be working hard for this period of time, you're probably not going to be that successful.
Yeah.
But if you're figuring out how to constantly make your life more focused on progress, on fitness, on learning, these things, you always keep getting better and you will keep going and you'll be the most successful, way more successful than the people who are like, if I can just get through my degree, if I can just get through college, get through these classes, then I'll never have to take a class or learn again. Like, if you have an end goal for learning, I'm sorry, but you're probably not going to be that successful in life.
Yeah.
Like, learning should be a lifestyle. Like, when I finished college, my immediate thought was, okay, how am I going to keep learning? Not, oh, good, now I never have to learn a thing again. Like, so I kept doing like Udemy courses. I actually kept doing college classes. I negotiated for Fridays off at my last job so that I could do continued education. And I would go take community college classes after I got my bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
And, it's like,
no, I think that's huge. Like something Sissi and I pride ourselves on is we're constant learners, right? We have different interests, and we're both naturally curious. We just want to learn stuff, right? And I think my friend used it in the terms of like psycho hobbyist. Like, you find something, you get super obsessed with it, and you just read, you learn new things, right? And I think that's huge. Like, Sissi wanted to learn some things to make her job a lot easier, and it had to require a little bit of programming skills, right? Like,
so
not programming.
No, it's not programming. Yeah. So no one on my team really knows SQL. And I was like, this is a need. And I was like, someone should learn this. And I was like, hey, you know what? Maybe I should learn this. So yeah, I logged on to Udemy and I took a beginner SQL class, and now I'm not great at it, but I'm playing around with data, and learning how it all works. And
she's using it in a use case, right? You're using it for work. So it's like it's kind of like you're going to get reps and you're going to learn, you're going to keep going. And
yep.
I think that's a testament to and I'm glad that you said that, to kind of, don't see an end goal, keep going. And I think too many people get comfortable, like, I'm in a home, I'm in a, I've reached my weight goal. Like, no, don't stop, keep going. Like, there's no goal for me here. Like, I want to, and that's a good way to look at it from a fitness standpoint. Like, in life, like in your situation, like, there's no real end goal. I'm just going to keep moving forward. And I think that's huge. I'm glad that you said that. But one of the things I want to do here is new for us, is kind of at the end, I'd like to ask you a set of questions, but they're for yourself. So, number one, what would you what advice would you give Cody from a year ago? Future self to past self.
A year ago.
Yeah, or more, like past Cody. What advice would you give? What words of advice could you give to Cody from the past?
I think The best advice I'd give myself in the past is probably to. That's a good question. So
take your time. It's okay. Take your time. It isn't.
Yeah. Just realize that your observations are valid. Just sometimes you think that you observe something in life and people will tell you that like, oh no, that's not the best way to do it. But yet you feel like, you know what, I'm seeing this work for, it's like, it's sometimes society or the people around you tell you there's one way to do something, but your own logic and your own observations may tell you otherwise.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to trust your own logic and observations a little more than the advice around you, especially as you get more experienced. It is nice in the beginning to lean on the advice of other people. People who've been through things, people who say like, oh yeah, I made $1 million and this is how I did it. This is the way to do it. You definitely hear them, like listen to that advice, but never ignore the observations you make yourself. If you see something and you're like, you know what, I really think that this is a way that would work, but it doesn't necessarily match what other people have done. Don't just ignore that. Don't ignore that. Because sometimes like it's that sort of thinking outside the box that really leads to success, and your own personal observations a lot of times are better than other people's advice.
Yeah. Great answer. Now the inverse of that, what questions would you have for Cody of the future? What would you want to know if there's anything?
What would I want to know
from the Cody of the future?
Oh geez. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many unforeseen events that it would be nice to know, like, what are the challenges that I'm going to hit? What sort of things as I develop and grow, like, do I need to be watching out for? And it's hard to say, like I said, when you're navigating something, but sometimes you can lean on the advice of people who have been there and been down that path before. But sometimes some of these things I'm doing is sort of uncharted territory.
Sure.
And so it's like, what sort of things am I going to even encounter?
Yeah.
And I would love to ask my future self, like, what do I need to be watching out for? But because I feel like there's so many unknowns and dark corners that, especially in building a startup, that you got to watch out for. Absolutely. And but
yeah, great answer. Yeah, no, absolutely. So Cody, where can our listening audience and viewing audience, if we do the video, where can they find you? Where can they, follow your journey? Where can they learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah. So currently, a lot of my videos are posted on TikTok. My handle is Cody the Coder, just one word. And I've also been reposting a lot of that stuff along with other pictures and random things on Instagram. That one, it was Cody the Coder, but with periods between the words, Cody.the.coder. I am going to be rolling out a YouTube channel here shortly.
Awesome.
And I'm looking for a little bit of assistance. I'd like to get, somebody to help manage that. If anybody out there is listening and wants to be a part of this journey, and maybe a film student or something out there.
There you go. Hey, that's someone. Yeah.
Like that needs some experience. I have a lot of ideas of where this could go on YouTube, but I just don't have the time. I'm doing this startup and I don't really have the time to manage all of these social media presences, all these different realms of my social media. But I do have the channel Cody the Coder on one word on YouTube. and there's going to be some content posted on there. I'm going to start probably doing summaries, maybe weekly summaries and stuff. So that way you don't have to see, because TikTok, everything is kind of scattered and out of order.
Yeah.
Like having this conversation with you, it's like hard to know, like, okay, well, how much of my story has he actually seen?
Yeah.
I would love to start creating, some summary videos and things like that to kind of get people up to speed and kind of tell the story in a longer format on YouTube.
Cool.
But that's going to start showing up as I get a little more help on that. So just kind of throwing that out there. Anybody who's interested in maybe working on that, wouldn't mind working with somebody, especially if they're in this area.
Yeah.
In the Bay Area.
Yeah. So we can physically connect with, see, and talk about. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Cody, I really do appreciate your time. I definitely, want to continue. I'm glad that you're getting out to the YouTube format, longer formats. I would really love to stay connected with just learning more about the journey and the process. I think it's exciting. Again, that whole garage startup, the whole story of just taking a chance and moving. I think it's great, and I think the listeners will enjoy continuing following your story on social media as well too. So again, thank you for your time, and thank you for just taking a moment to talk with us on our podcast today.
Yeah, of course, it was fun. I appreciate all the questions. You did great.
All right, guys, a quick note before we sign off. I just want to say thank you for listening, and also thank you to Cody for sharing and really his inspirational story with us and with all of you guys, the listeners. We wish him nothing but success in his ongoing efforts, and we hope to catch up with him, hopefully in person, in the near future. And before we go, make sure you guys follow us on Instagram. That's F2F Podcasts on Instagram, and F2Fpodcast.com, or anywhere you guys listen to podcasts. Until the next one, we'll see you guys.